to honor our long-serving member of the Bermuda Olympic Association. And we have a few people who have some things to say, some reflections that we would like to share at this time. So to start with, I'm going to invite the president at the time of the Bermuda Olympic Association that brought our friend to the Olympic Association, and I'm asking Mr. Austin Woods to come forward.
Good evening, everyone. In the absence of the minister, I guess I have to say good evening, fellow Olympians, sports representatives. Can you hear me, Jimmy? I first met Phillip when they established the sports awards through the government. And Phillip was the Department of Youth and Sports Recording Secretary under the then director, Mr. Roberts, who is here this evening. I was a representative for the Olympic sports. I was impressed by Phillip's ability to articulate considerations in our deliberations and his in-depth research during the committee's meetings. Our friendship grew stronger during the 1988 Olympic Games in Seoul, when I was a chef de mission and he was a representative for the Bermuda Track and Field Association. Phillip had great administrative capabilities and knowledge. When I became president in 1992, and the then established person that was responsible for our technical director, which was Randy Benjamin, I brought Phillip on to be a part of the Olympic Committee as a member in his own right. I know that Phillip had reservations about whether he could do the job as a member in his own right, and he questioned me and quizzed me over and over, but he did extremely well, and he filled in extremely well after Randy's passing. And of course, the rest is history. Phillip led many teams as a chef de mission during my tenure as president. One of his more memorable attributes was his ability to find quality venues for the team luncheons. Phillip loved fine dining and always found restaurants off the beaten track. Whenever Phillip had an idea or a suggestion, he would call and say, "Mr. President, what are you doing? Let's have lunch." And true to form, he would conjure an idea that was thought-provoking or inspiring. Anne, Vanessa, and Mark, I too miss my friend, and I applaud the BOA for the most fitting celebration of his life. I recently attended the last county game in St. David's, but that too was empty because Phillip was not in his usual post on the porch in St. David's. I am, however, comforted by the memories and the good times that he shared with us and the knowledge of our highly regarded Phillip was in the Olympic movement and sports in Bermuda. For all of this, Bermuda is better off by his enormous contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, El Presidente. I'd like at this point to ask another president. Of course, Phil's founding sport was the Bermuda Track and Field Association, now known as the BNAA. And the president of that organization, I would ask now to come forward, who could give some insight because I think she was around at the time of the formation of the Bermuda Track and Field Association, and now she is president. That is Miss Donna Rayner.
Talk louder. Good evening, all. Mr. Phillip Guishard, he was president of the Bermuda Track and Field Association from 1985 to 1994. He was dedicated, he was passionate about the sport of track and field, and I'm sure everyone here representing track and field would agree with me 100%. I remember him from my time as an athlete up to now as the administrator of the sport. He has always been a true supporter of this sport. Every year since I have been president, Mr. Guishard would call me before the Carifta Games and say, Donna, where are you staying? I want to go to the games. Can you hook me up? Now, if you know the Caribbean, Mr. Guishard was well, very well. Most people in the Caribbean knew Phillip Guishard. So when I got there, his accreditation was ready for him. I had it. I would be searching for Mr. Guishard. Mr. Guishard would show up at the stadium with his accreditation around his neck. And I say, well, what happened? He said, oh, I just went to the office myself. They know me, and they gave me my accreditation. So here he is. He now has 2 accreditations. While we were at Carifta, Mr. Guishard was one of those type of people that always wanted to learn the culture of everywhere we went. And I won't never forget the last Carifta we went to when we were in Grenada. He said to me, we were at the stadium, Mr. Guishard walks into the stadium, and I said, well, how did you get here? He said, you know me, I get on the buses with all the locals. So he was hanging outside of the bus with his arms out. He said it was wonderful, the breeze was blowing through, and here we are sitting on the buses that were assigned for him, and Phillip was on the buses with the locals. And he would tell me of all the restaurants that he went to eat at. Very seldom did we see him in the hotel because he was eating out. He always wanted to learn the culture of everywhere that he went. Throughout every international competition that I traveled with Phillip, he never, ever, ever missed a performance of any of the Bermuda athletes. He would have the schedule in hand with their events marked out. He would have them all highlighted, and was always looking on and supporting them. I knew that look that he gave me when he was pleased with a performance. I remember we had Kyra Skraders winning a gold medal at the Carifta Games, and Phil would look at me, thumbs up, and I always knew that look in his eye when he was so proud that the Bermuda athletes did really well. He would come to me, he would give me a big hug and say, congratulations, President. Mr. Guishard was a mentor, and he was my friend. To many, he was so respected worldwide, as he was so knowledgeable of the sport in general, and not just track and field, all sports in general. He was always there for me and the Bermuda National Athletics Association. He was the first person we called whenever we had an AGM and said we needed a scrutineer. He always made himself available. Whether he was busy or not, he said, I might be running a bit late, but I will show up. I would truly miss his guidance. He was the one that guided me through when I got a call from the BOA and they asked me to be the chef de mission. And I was like, okay, what is a chef de mission? What do I do? Mr. Guishard guided me through both times when I was chef for the CAC Games. He was there at the games. When I had to go to meetings, Mr. Guishard was there. He held my hand through everything that I had to do. So now I feel as if I could take on that role, and I have been asked to put on a seminar for chefs because Mr. Guishard took me step by step through everything. When I got to the CAC Games, I knew every single thing that I had to do as a chef. He was my friend, he was my mentor, and he was my travel partner. Because as I said, every Carifta Games I went to, Mr. Guishard was there. The sport of athletics and sports in general has lost a very, very knowledgeable person in Mr. Guishard. Thank you.
Took my paper with him. When you do come up, lean a little bit to the left here so that we can be heard a little bit better. And at this moment, we have in our presence the Minister of Youth, Sport, and Community, and he's going to have a word on behalf of the government of Bermuda. Mr. De Silva.
All right, good evening, everyone. Wow, gives me a little bit of unique privilege and honor to honor Phil tonight, because Phil and I went way back. And when Judy sent out the invitation, and I quickly looked at my schedule and I said, yep, I ain't gonna have any problem coming and say a few words on Phil's behalf. Phil and I met Phil, must have been, oh my gosh, I don't even want to say how long ago. But I met Phil back in, I would have to say, in the late 70s, during the days when I started running. I remember going down to the track, seeing my mate Mike Watson over there, of course Donna, stalwarts like Gary Wilkinson, Ray Swan. We had a good crew back then. And one of the things I'll never forget is there was a time when running sort of had its divisions. And I'm not so sure if we've quite closed that divisional gap as yet. But I know that back in the day, Phillip certainly gave me advice along myself. It was Belvin Smith, Coach Clive Long. Oh, here's my notes, by the way. But I certainly didn't need these to talk about Phil. But one of the things we did back then, and Donna will remember clearly wherever she may be now. Yeah, I think Donna will remember clearly when we made some changes to the BTFA it was then. And it was a good time because I think that we want to change. I think a lot of people want to change. And we did change the BTFA, which is now the BNAA. We did change it forever. But as far as Phil goes, I think everyone knows that Phil was a man that gave much attention to detail. He was certainly, he never reached the heights of Mike and I in terms of success. But no, Phil, as you all know, Phil used to run, and of course, you know, he just chugged along, did his thing, and he was steady Eddie, and he will be one that certainly I will remember for the rest of my life. And Donna, I think, gave a good summation of what the man was like, and I certainly think that he went on to be super assistants to Judy and the Olympic Association in his role as General Secretary. And as Donna said, he'll be sorely missed, and I'm sure that he will. The good thing is that he spent a lot of time with Judy, and I think a lot of that will be passed on, and it's shown already that it's passed on, because Judy is certainly, I don't know when she's going to get tired of doing what she does, but I would suspect that if... Yeah, I'm sure that it does. But no, certainly on behalf of the government, I think Phil set a very high standard for anyone that wishes to be involved in the administration of sports. He participated, but he gave his all into everything that he did. And Bermuda Track and Field Association will be the beneficiary of his hard work and dedication over the years, as I'm sure the Olympic Association will. So hats off to Phil. We'll have a little drink on him tonight. And thank you, Judy, and the Olympic Association for holding this in his honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, and thank those who have come before him. At this time, we'd like to introduce our president, who will be the final speaker tonight. But before we move on, I want to say one thing. You live on in the hearts and minds of the people you touch. Well, Phil touched my life, and I just want to have my little bit in there. You live on in the hearts and minds of the people you touch. So if you're willing to do those extras, you will live on also. Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Douglas. Minister, Mr. Carey, and of course my favorite family, the Guishard family, and to all the colleagues in sport of Phillip. This is actually the first time that I've actually had an opportunity to say a few words about my good friend Phillip. It's been a year. The anniversary was tough. I quietly dealt with it. But you know, Phillip lives on in the Olympic movement. He lives on in track and field. And I sometimes shake my head and I say, OMG, Phillip, what are we going to do next? But you persevere. The man is loved and revered around the world. Do not let me hesitate in that comment at all. And he is revered in the Commonwealth especially. And Louise Martin talks about him, who is the president of the CGF, in the most fondest of memories. Phillip was my mentor, and in fact the only reason why I am the president of the Bermuda Olympic Association today is because of Phillip. In 2008, we sat down while Phillip was a member in his own right, and he said, Judy, this is the time for change. Austin Woods was a part of that change, assisting me on how I should move forward, along with Phillip, to make a difference in the Bermuda Olympic Association and sport in general. The road has been long. I will not deny it's been hard, but I will also tell you this, it's been very beneficial. And the seed was sown by Phillip. If you know Phillip, he was anal in everything he did. He was meticulous to the nth degree. And I am forever grateful in my current position where I am today because of him. And you had a special man in your life. And I know that you recognize what Phillip meant to the Olympic Association. I know you know what sport meant to Phillip. These photographs are just but a few, and what you see here is how Phillip conducted himself around the world. We have privilege to have known him and to remember him. And to that end, I thank you those who are here today to recognize Mr. Guishard for all the good that he's done in Bermudian sport. Phillip Jr. is on the way. He was good enough to wait. And the only reason why I'm calling him Phillip Jr., because Vanessa tells me Phillip is in his name. Whatever else happens, he'll be always Phillip Jr. All the best, Vanessa. To the family, to Phillip's twin sister, thank you for being here. Phillip has meant so much, as I know he does in your life. Mark, and to the in-laws, he'll never be replaced, but he will be remembered forever and a day. To that end, I thank everybody who's made tonight special. To Kim and her team, Kim Selly and her team, thank you for making tonight possible. I would like to ask whoever, we have a small presentation to make. Annie, come on up, Annie. Come on up, Annie. The IOC think nothing less of Phillip than we do. And this has come from the Olympic Association in Switzerland. This is just but a small memento for forever remember Phillip, and I know you'll put it in an appropriate place for him. So on behalf of the IOC, CGF, PASO, CAXCO, and the Bermuda Olympic Association, this is but just a small recognition of our thoughts and prayers with Phillip constantly.
Thank you very much. Can I say it at the
I don't know if it's on it.
I would like to thank all of you for coming to honor Phillip. He loved this job. He said it was the best job he had ever had, and that was after he retired. He enjoyed the travel. He just loved every aspect of it. And I know he held all of you in great esteem. And I just thank you so much for making Philip's life a wonderful one towards the end. Thank you for this. Thank you so much.